guys, today I'm going to talk about how to do the basic outline and measuring for the elements of art project. So what I have here are 8 different triangles, 7 of them being the 7 elements of art. It just works out that one of these is going to be the title section because there are only 7 elements of art. Now, what can be tricky is in terms of measuring is it depends on if you're virtual, if you're at home, if you're in my classroom, kind of where you're at in terms of the paper size. So I'm going to show you a variety of ways to do this depending on what materials you have at school or what materials you have at home. So the goal is to get your paper into a square. Ideally, you either use drawing paper, which is 9 by 12 from my classroom. You could use copy paper, which is 8.5 by 11. Okay, so it looks kind of like this. This is just plain printer paper. That's great too. If you don't have any printer paper at your house, you can also use the back of mail. Remember, sometimes they print on one side and then the back is blank. So please be looking out for those things. And if you know you don't have printer paper, start saving those. You could also come to school and grab some paper, and I'd be happy to help you. Please email me if that is the case. Also, if you don't have anything and you can't go to school, you could use notebook paper, but remember with notebook paper, it already has lines. So I'd prefer if you don't have printer paper, you look and see if you have mail that has a blank side. All right, so we need to make this into a square for our project. I'm going to demo first with a piece of copy paper. So what I'll do is I'll take my ruler. Let's assume we have a ruler first, and if you don't, I'll show you another way. And I'm going to put my ruler up on the paper, and I'm going to line it with the left side, and I'm going to make a mark at 8.5 because this paper is 8.5 inches wide, and it's 11 inches tall. So I make another mark at 8.5 towards the bottom. I use my ruler. I connect those two together. And then I'm going to take a pair of scissors and I'm going to cut it. Okay, then I should have a square piece of paper. Now let's say you are at school and I actually have my drawing paper, which is 9 by 12. What I would do in this case is I would take it, instead of measuring it at 8.5, I would measure it at 9. And the reason I'm measuring it at 9 is because my paper was 9 inches wide and it was 12 inches long. So you're trying to make a square. So it may be, if your paper is 9 by 12, it would be 9 by 9 at the end. If your paper started out as 8.5 inches by 11 inches, it would be 8.5 by 8.5 at the end. So you need to measure the width of your paper before you do any cutting. Now let's say you're at home and you don't have a ruler. This is what you could possibly do. You could take a piece of copy paper, okay? You're going to take it and you're going to fold it up to the edge here. It's hard to get it perfect, but I'll try. You're going to fold it just like this. And then I have this extra piece that I can cut off. Just like that. Alrighty, so however you're going to get your paper to a square, you need to get it to a square. All right, now what we're going to do in order to make these different sections is we're going to start by dividing the paper in half. So if I was using my regular 8.5 inch paper, so this is copy paper right now, this is not my drawing paper, I need to figure out what half of this paper is. So if I put my ruler on here, it says 8.5. Half of 8 is 4, and half of a half is a fourth, so 0.25. So if I want to get to exactly the middle of this, I need to make a mark at 4.25 or 4 1/4. So how I figure that out is this. I look between 4 and 5. In the very middle, that's 4 1/2. If I look in between the middle of 4 and 4 1/2, this mark here, that is 4 1/4. or 4.25, however you want to say it. So I'm going to make a mark right there. I'm going to pull my ruler down to the bottom. Again, I'm using a piece of copy paper right now, so if you're not using copy paper, yours is going to be different. I make a mark again at 4.25, which is this mark right here. So I look between 4 and 5. Halfway in between 4 and 5 is 4.5. And then I find the 4 and I find the half, and halfway between that is 4.25. I'm going to do this on every single side. If you're struggling to find the mark, you may want to watch my How to Read a Ruler video, or you may want to pause this one and see if you can figure it out on your ruler. Okay, then I am going to connect these together, and I should get 4 equal squares. If it looks off, it doesn't look right, you need to go back, put the ruler on each side, and recheck your measurements, because very often people do not measure correctly, and that's why it gets off. All right, next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put an X in the middle. So I'll take my ruler and I will try to go through the center as best as possible. And I'm going to do the other side too. Okay, just like that. So this is a good place to start. Remember, this is my copy paper, 8.5 by 11. Well, it's 8.5 by 8.5 now. All right, let's say I'm at school and I'm using Mrs. Hall's drawing paper. Well, this is the same thing. It's a 9-inch square, okay? So half of 9 is 4.5. So I look at the 4, I look at the 5, halfway between that is 4.5. So I make a mark on each side. 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to connect these together. Again, I'm going fast because it's a video, but if you find that you are struggling, my ruler is not quite long enough. This is when you need the 18-inch rulers. Just going to have to move it down. Okay, so there we go. So this is if you have a 9 by 9 paper. Now, let's say you're like, well, okay, Miss Hall, I didn't have a ruler at my house and I had to fold this paper. Okay, this is what you're going to do then if you have no ruler. You're going to take the paper, you're going to fold it in half, you're going to fold it in half again, then I already have a crease that goes down the side because I didn't have a ruler before. So I'm going to fold it in half this way. I'm going to fold it in half the other way. And now I also have the fold lines. If you could see, the fold lines are the same. So you could use the side of a book. You could use whatever you can find that you can use to make this look decent. Go for it. Okay, so I would go through, make it as straight as possible. I have all my lines here. Now, I know some people automatically are like, well, why didn't you just have us do that in the first place? Well, here's the deal. Now this paper is all folded. If that's all you have, then it's fine. But ideally, we don't want art projects to be all crumpled up and folded. Okay? All right, last but not least, we're going to go through and we are going to make the border. So the border is where the words are going to go. And traditionally, I've had people measure half an inch, but I think honestly, just eyeballing it would be a little bit easier. So we're going to attempt to make all these borders equal. So what I'll do is I'll take my straight edge, my ruler, and I'll leave a space at the edge that I think that I can draw the word. Okay. And the goal is you want to make all of your edges, all of the borders about the same size. So I used to have people measure all this, but I feel like eyeballing it is just as good, if not better, because some people really struggle with measuring. Okay, so right there I have the border, and it doesn't matter if you're doing it on the smaller sheet, the 8.5, or if you're doing it on the larger one here, either way is fine. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write the words, the 7 elements of art. So I'll write line. And when you do this, you can make them fancy. Like you could make block letters if you wanted to. You could make bubble letters. You could write all caps. You can write normal. It's really up to you how you do it, but you're going to go through and you're going to write all of these down. You will have one section that is blank, and that's going to be the title section. So keep that in mind. Some people are like, I forgot one. Okay. Well, yeah, you might have, but one should be blank. So remember, you can write these in fancy letters. So I'll go ahead and I'll tell you what these are, and then you can stop the video if you need to. Line, form, space, value, texture, shape, color. 7 of these, okay? Once you get these written exactly as you want, there's one blank, then I want you to stop. I do not want you to Sharpie right now.